Ramadan is my favorite month of the year. This is a month of reflection.
Zohran Mamdani. A year ago, almost no one imagined he would become the first mayor to observe Ramadan in office this year. Back then, he wasn't the strongest candidate, not the most backed, not the one people expected to win. He was young, a Muslim, a democratic socialist, and to many, he was just an outsider challenging a system that rarely makes room for someone like him. But what made him truly different was his willingness to speak openly about justice, about dignity, and about Palestine.
There's been a lot of attention on this issue, so I want to give you an opportunity to respond here and now. Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the Intifada?
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights. And ultimately, that's what is the foundation of so much of my politics, the belief that freedom and justice and safety are things that to have meaning have to be applied to all people, and that includes Israelis and Palestinians alike.
His stance on Palestine sparked immediate reactions. Support from some, outrage from others. Because in politics, taking a moral position always comes with a cost. Then came the debate. One question exposed everything. Where would their first visit be as mayor? One by one, the candidates gave the expected answer: Israel. But when it was his turn, he refused to follow the script. He didn't talk about leaving New York. He talked about staying, about visiting Jewish communities, Muslim communities, and every faith that calls the city home. Because to him, leadership wasn't about proving loyalty abroad. It was about showing responsibility at home.
The first foreign visit by a mayor of New York is always considered significant. Where would you go first? Left to right, Ms. Adams.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Mr. Cuomo?
Given the hostility and the anti-Semitism that has been shown in New York, I would go to Israel.
Mr. Tilson, where would you go?
Yeah, I'd make my fourth trip to Israel, followed by my fifth trip to Ukraine, two of our greatest allies fighting on the front lines of the global war on terror.
Mr. Mamdani?
I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Mr. Mamdani, can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel as mayor?
I will be doing, as the mayor, I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and temples, or at their homes, or at the subway platform, because ultimately we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
But his willingness to stand for justice, dignity, and humanity made him a target. Not in debate halls, but on social media, where his faith was no longer seen as a strength, but twisted into an accusation, where being Muslim was enough for some people to question his loyalty.
I think Zohran Mamdani needs to go in front of the 9/11 memorial and yell globalize.
So do I. But why wait? I think someone with a Google VO3 account needs to make that AI content. Zohran Mamdani in front of the 9/11 memorial, chanting, globalize the Intifada.
And just as the accusations grew louder, a voice emerged from the other side. Not to attack him, but to defend him. A Christian pastor stepped forward, and what she said surprised everyone. She didn't see him as an enemy. She saw something else, a reflection of the very justice her own faith had always taught.
Zohran Mamdani might be one of the most Christ-like political figures in our American system right now. And hear me out. I'm Blair. I'm a pastor, a parent, and a professor of theology. And I understand that Zohran is Muslim. That's not the point here. The point here is the way that Zohran describes his own philosophy of the government. In a recent interview with The Daily and the New York Times, he said, "What democratic socialism means is a belief that it is government's job to ensure that every person is living a life of dignity. And dignity is not the things that you'd like, it's not the things that you'd want, and it's the things that you need." I'm gonna say that one more time. The government's job is to ensure that every person is living a life of dignity. And when I read the scriptures and look at what Jesus does for people in his ministry, it is to ensure them a life of dignity. It's to heal people who've been exiled because of their illness or their disability. It's to feed people when they're hungry. It's to see children as beloved and to belonging to the community instead of as property or possessions. It's to see women the same way. Jesus ensures a life of dignity for all those he meets. And so if you want to talk about instituting a Christian government, I would pay attention to what Zohran Mamdani is doing. Because what he is describing is a Christ-like system of government where we are all assured the basic necessities for human dignity. And I think that looks like the kingdom of God.
And they're like, so are you saying that you wouldn't visit Israel? He says, I will visit the Jewish New Yorker population in those 5 boroughs. I will visit them in their homes. I will visit them in their synagogues, but I will stay in New York. And one of the presenters actually interrupts him and says, Mr. Mamdani, do you believe in Israel as a state? As to which he says, I believe in the Jewish people should have a state. And she goes, but do you believe in Israel as a state? And the other people up on the panel who are debating right now all go against him. And they're saying, oh, he doesn't believe Israel should be a state. To which he responds, I believe every state should have equal rights. And he's talking about the Palestinian state and the Jewish state. But here's the thing. This is for mayor of New York. Why is it focused right now on, are you visiting Israel? And he is saying, I'm going to focus my attention on New York because that's what I'm running for. I'm running for the mayor of New York. I'm sorry, you can't make this stuff up.
For a moment, the attacks didn't define him. Voices from outside his faith began to speak, defending his character, defending his principles, reminding the public that justice was not owned by one religion. But the accusations didn't stop. They escalated. His opponents and their allies began tying his faith to fear, suggesting he didn't belong, even allowing rhetoric that linked his identity to extremism and terrorism. The message was clear. He wasn't just being challenged as a candidate. He was being challenged for who he was. Then came the debate. Standing just feet away from Andrew Cuomo, a man backed by the establishment, Zohran Mamdani did something few expected. He didn't retreat. He didn't apologize. He answered, calmly, directly, and in that moment, the narrative began to collapse.
You are also a socialist, and because of that, why wouldn't President Trump target you and by extension target New Yorkers?
I don't think there's any question that there's any mayor here that will be free from being attacked by Donald Trump. What's more important, however, is that we have a mayor who will actually fight back, and that's what I will do. I am Donald Trump's worst nightmare as a progressive Muslim immigrant who actually fights for the things that I believe in. And the difference between myself and Andrew Cuomo is that my campaign is not funded by the very billionaires who put Donald Trump in D.C. I don't have to pick up the phone from Bill Ackman or Ken Langone. I have to pick up the phone for the more than 20,000 New Yorkers who contributed an average donation of about $80 to break fundraising records and put our campaign in second place.
He's very good on Twitter and with videos, but he actually produces nothing for him to accuse me of lying. He also called President Obama a liar and said President Obama was evil. So take everything with a grain of salt. Donald Trump would go through Mr. Mamdani like a hot knife through butter. He's been in government 27 minutes. He passed 3 bills. That's all he's done. He has no experience with Washington, no experience in New York City. He would be Trump's delight.
Brief response, Mr. Mamdani, then we have to move on.
Look, it's true that I don't have experience with corrupt Trump billionaires who are funding my campaign. I don't have experience with party politics and insider consultants. I do have experience, however, with winning $450 million in debt relief for thousands of working class taxi drivers and actually delivering it to the working class people I claim.
Thank you, Mr.
My name is Assemblymember Zohran Mamdani, and I am running to make this city affordable. I'll freeze the rent for millions of tenants, make buses fast and free, and deliver universal childcare. And before you ask, I'll pay for it by taxing the rich.
Mamdani's right. He's never done anything, period.
Mr. Mamdani.
This is a man who
Just say the name right, Mamdani.
This is a man who has done nothing. He's accomplished nothing. 3 bills are all he passed. He is the worst attendance record in the New York State Assembly. He has never held a real job. He has 0 accomplishments.
I want to be very
And now
clear.
he thinks he's going to be ready to be mayor of the city of New York. To put a person in this seat at this time with no experience is reckless and dangerous.
To Mr. Cuomo, I have never had to resign in disgrace. I have never cut Medicaid. I have never stolen hundreds of millions of dollars from the MTA. I have never hounded the 13 women who credibly accused me of sexual harassment. I have never sued for their gynecological records. And I have never done those things because I am not you, Mr. Cuomo. And furthermore, the name is Mamdani. M-A-M-D-A-N-I. You should learn how to say it because we got to get it right.
That moment didn't just silence his opponent, it changed how people saw him. Not as an outsider, not as a long shot, but as someone who could stand his ground without raising his voice, without betraying who he was. And in a city that had heard decades of promises, people began to listen differently. What started as doubt turned into curiosity. Curiosity turned into belief. And belief turned into something no one could ignore. The night the results came in, New York answered.
That's all of Franklin Ave.
The celebrations filled the streets. Strangers embraced. Voices rose into the night. For a moment, the city wasn't divided by politics, but united by possibility. It was more than a victory. It was a signal that something new had arrived. But leadership is not measured in the loudness of celebration. It is revealed in the quiet moments that follow. Because beyond the cameras, beyond the applause, came something far more personal. Ramadan. A month that has nothing to do with power and everything to do with the soul. As the poet Rumi once said, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself." And now, for the first time in the city's history, the man who had just won the world's attention would step into a month meant not to conquer others, but to conquer himself. A month of reflection, a month of solidarity, a month of remembering those too often forgotten.
Hi, Mayor. How does it feel being the first Muslim mayor of New York on this first day of Ramadan? What is your message to New Yorkers who are observing the holiday?
Thank you very much. Well, right now I feel parched. But Ramadan is my favorite month of the year. It's a month, and the council member, 2 of us, are part of what some say maybe more than 1 million Muslims in New York City. And this is a month of reflection, it's a month of solidarity, and it's a month that is so often characterized just by the fact that we are not eating or drinking from sunup to sundown, but it misses what actually drives us through the course of the day, which is a chance to actually reflect. And it is a month also that I look forward to because of what it means for a sense of community. And I can tell you that for me, there is no better way to start this month, to start our fasts, than to be here together today. Because this is a moment that nourishes the soul. It is a moment that reminds us of what public service can deliver for New Yorkers. And it is a joy to begin our Ramadan together. And I look forward over the course of this month as the first mayor to ever be practicing and participating in Ramadan, to have a chance to connect with Muslims across the city, whether they be waking up in the morning for Sabar as they start their jobs, or whether they be working through the night, pausing for one moment to have a date to break their fast. I look forward to meeting them and being there with them.
They tried to reduce him to a label, a religion, a stereotype, a headline. But in the end, none of it was strong enough to define him. Because while they were watching his politics, he was living his faith. Not in slogans, not in arguments, but in discipline, in compassion, in restraint. This is what Ramadan was always meant to reveal. Not weakness, but clarity. Not division, but mercy. What Islam calls Rahmatan lil Alamin, a mercy to all worlds. Not just for one people, not just for one city, but for anyone willing to see beyond fear and recognize the strength of a soul that refuses to hate. And now, in the city that never stops chasing power, its mayor chooses, instead, to chase peace.